to start this episode with a little story. In 2019, I was a proud parent. And as usual, I mean, when you're a parent, I do not know about you, but for me, no one ever told me what it means to be a parent. What should I do? How should I handle the different stages of childhood? And so I just happened to take my child to a school, and they had a program that turned out to be life-changing for me. My guest today does not even know it, but he planted a seed in 2019. And so from 2019 up until 2023, I was just using the tools that he gave me back in 2019. And it was such a pleasure in 2023 to meet up with him again. And this time, actually, he gave me new tools to move with me. Because remember, in 2019, my child was a certain age, and in 2023, she was a different age. My guest today is one of the most decorated persons I've had an honor to meet in the recent past. He is the Executive Dean of Strathmore University Business School. And prior to that, he was the group chief CEO of ICEA Holdings. He holds a PhD in Organizational Performance and Change Management from the University of Johannesburg, an MBA in Strategy and Corporate Finance from Wits Business School, and a Bachelor of Arts, Economics from Nairobi University. He is a certified accountant, a certified internal auditor, a certified executive leadership coach, and a trained facilitator for the use of organization culture transformation tools from London, UK. Dr. Mwangi has over 25 years of experience in various management and leadership roles. I do not have the right words for my guest. He's well decorated and achieved so much. But just before we started this episode, he told me that his best and most fulfilling accomplishment is being a husband and being a father. Introducing Dr. Caesar.
Thank you very much. Very happy to have this conversation today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am so happy to have you here today, and
yes.
I appreciate you taking your time.
Yes, you're welcome.
I know you're a very busy man.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So maybe you could just start. I know you don't want us to say all these things, but I want you to go in a bit into what you have accomplished as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, as you mentioned earlier, I think to keep things simple, I like to see my primary role as a family man who has a wife and children who I need to take care of 24/7. No? They've been entrusted to us and I need to take care of them. So I take that role very, very seriously. But apart from that, there's a lot I have done in the area of business. At one point in my life, I lived in South Africa for 11 years. In fact, when I got married, I was actually living in South Africa. And some of my children, the first 3 children in our family were born in South Africa.
Okay.
And the other 2 were born here in Kenya. But at that time I had left Kenya, where I worked as a management consultant with a company called Deloitte & Touche. And I went to South Africa to do an MBA. And after I did the MBA degree, I stayed on and started working there. And that's when I got married and started a family there. Apart from that, I also did a PhD while there. I set up a business there, which I nurtured for 7 years before I left to go to Ethiopia. And I spent 2 years in Ethiopia as a consultant before I came back to Kenya. When I came back to Kenya, I started teaching at the Strathmore Business School because I had a PhD in business and they wanted lecturers for the MBA program at the business school. And so I was one of the first group of lecturers at that time in 2006, 2007. So I've been on and off in Strathmore, but on a part-time basis for all those years since 2006. And In between, I've been CEO of several organizations in this country. There's a public company called Sasini PLC. There's another group called IC Lion Group, and I've been in senior management there as the chief executive. And well, I've done quite a few other things. In a nutshell, this is where I am. Currently, I'm at the Strathmore Business School, where I'm the executive dean for the business school, where I look at the business school and I look after the business school and its programs with a view to really transforming our country, transforming our continent by transforming the individuals who come to the business school. And the way we see it is there's a big challenge in the African continent, a challenge of development, a challenge of work ethic, a challenge of values. And the business school and the university at large is trying to change that reality by inculcating values into the people who come here, so that we can have what we call ethical transformational leaders who come through here and go out into the businesses that they have to work for, into government, into the corporations, and make a difference, a positive difference for the common good, not for their self-interest. Because I think the biggest problem we have in the country now is, in the continent, is sometimes self-interest, poor leadership. You find businesses collapsing all around us, employment opportunities being destroyed, yet we have so many young people in this continent, in this country, who need jobs. And if we don't do things well, then we don't create opportunities for them. So it's a very wonderful place to be at the business school, Strathmore Business School, and that's what I'm doing currently. Yeah.
How long have you been here at Strathmore Business School?
Well, as I said, I was here on a part-time basis 2006, and I joined full-time last year as the dean of the business school, executive dean of the business school. So it's now a full-time position. Before that, I was part-time, and I was working in various industries and coming in on a part-time basis to do certain things. All along, all this time, I have also been involved in delivering family programs. We have a program here at the business school called the Program for Family Development, where we deliver parenting programs in schools for couples who bring their children to the schools. And for over 10 years now, I've been part of that, of the facilitators in this program, and it has been very wonderful. Meeting so many parents in different schools. We also have that program running here where we invite parents and they come here. And we've recently started in the university a program called Engaging Young Adults for parents of university students. Engaging young adults, because they still need to engage their young adults as parents, and we found there was a big gap there. So that program is also running here, and I'm also a facilitator on that program. It's currently ongoing. Yeah.
So, supposing I have a young adult at home,
Yes.
Can I come as an individual, or I have to be aligned to a different school or some sort of organization?
Yes. Okay. For the particular program we're running here, we run it for the parents of the university.
Yeah. I see.
But we have public programs for parents from any place, which we run here. And those are parenting programs from parents of very young children, 0 to 3 years, 4 years to 7 years, preteens, and adolescents, young adolescents. Because all these stages of life require different tools, for lack of a better word, as a parent in the modern age. The modern age is very complicated, as you may be aware. And the reason we run these programs is because of the complexity of raising children in this age. The biggest complication that we have as parents and the children have is the flow of information. There's a lot of access to information because of technology, right? And that information is either true or false. So sometimes you say there's also a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of information, but there's a lot of misinformation that is very misleading. And we find parents are not able to sift and get what is good or useful. So we try and package that in our programs so that they can use it to, at the end of the day, bring up. Children are basically mature adults in waiting. You know? They are mature, responsible adults in waiting. So for them to get to that level of maturity, there needs to be certain engagements and certain processes that the parents need to understand what's going on. And those requirements require them to be aware of what they need to do at every different stage of life. You know? A very young child, for example, simply needs to learn how to feed well and to sleep well. you know, and that is done at a very young age. And there are actually good habits for making sure that happens. There are good habits for making sure that they feed well. But parents don't know because no one has ever taught them. And there are no classes out there. So people struggle. And the children don't sleep, the parents don't sleep because they've never really understood that there's a way of making sure that child is able to sleep the whole night without disturbing everybody. So as they grow older, they start learning a few other things, how to become a bit responsible. They can help around the house, you know, they can start speaking, and all these parents again need to treat them in a certain way. And this can only be done if they have the knowledge.
Yes.
So we try to provide that knowledge to the parents through the different programs. Yeah.
Okay. And someone would argue that in today's time and age, I mean, we send our kids to school for roughly around 8 hours.
Yes.
Maybe it's the responsibility of the teachers
Right.
to inculcate our kids and to teach our kids.
Right. That's a good, that's actually a very common fallacy. A very common fallacy. And let's go back to nature. If you look at nature, our children are born from the interaction of two people, right? A man and a woman. And in fact, nature then has ordained that these will be the first teachers of that child. Because a child is born a blank slate. What they call a tabula rasa. So the first teachers are the two adults. Usually these are adults. They're not children.
Okay.
The two adults who bring that child to life are the first teachers, right? And because the child is born with no conception of anything, those people start giving that child the conception of what life is all about. Because the child is interacting with them on a daily basis, or should be interacting with them on a daily basis. As that child interacts with them, they are imparting values. Those values lead to certain habits, and those habits are the ones that lead to the character of that child, right? Because they'll be practiced habitually. And the child can also learn vices, which lead to certain habits, which lead to certain character. So it will either be a good character based on virtue or a bad character based on vice. And for the good of society, we always say it is better to impart good values, which lead to good habits, which lead to a good character, because it's good for the society. And if you think about it, when people have good character, they feel good and the people around them feel good. Because that's the way life is. When they have bad character, they actually even feel bad themselves, but people around them are upset and not very happy. So we have a society of angry people, a society where people have no trust. You cannot do business because you're afraid of being conned. So we cannot leave that to the teachers. The teachers have their role as secondary educators. The primary educator is the parent, and nature has ordained it. Nature could have been different. We could have been, children could have been born on trees like fruits. And if you want a girl, you go to a girl tree and pluck a girl. You want a boy, you go to a boy tree. You don't need two couples to be intimate with one another. All you do is go pick a fruit, the kind of child you want on the tree, and then you take care of that child. But nature did not go that route. Two people need to be together, and those are the first educators. So we go back to basics, and we believe this is why it's important that parents try to collaborate, because again, the two are different. One brings certain qualities, one brings other qualities. Some say it's masculine and feminine qualities combined. Even the brain formation between the man and the woman is different. One is a bit more patient, one can multitask, one is a bit more long-term thinking. All these help bring all the qualities to help this child to grow into adulthood.
From your experience in the program for family development,
Yes.
do you think that the family unit, as we know it, as we've known it, is under siege?
Yes. In fact, it's under tremendous threat. Tremendous threat. The family unit, as I started earlier, it started by two people. But of course, it doesn't always work out. One person may leave the unit because of some disagreements or whatever the cases or whatever reason there is. So we are increasingly finding single parent homes, and we are now having even the definition of the family being changed to include two males form a family or two females form a family, which is contrary to nature, unfortunately. and it does not bring out the kind of education for that child if the unit is messed up. I want to just say, where is the siege coming from? It is coming from a desire for freedom.
Okay.
Right? Where we want to do as we wish, without any boundaries, without any rules, except what we decide. And this is because of the whole concept of individualism being a dominant value in society. In traditional societies, individualism was less of a dominant value. But in this so-called modern society where we are self-sufficient, individualism is a very dominant value. Along with it, of course, comes the value of materialism, where our well-being is judged by the amount of material goods we can amass. And therefore, the human being has become more of a human having. You know, what you have is more important than what you are. And these are all ideologies that have increasingly become common from the modern world as we develop, the so-called development. So there's a lot of siege under that. I experienced this in South Africa also, where there was a lot of challenge with families because the society, under the apartheid government, apartheid rule, had broken families apart. So people would live in the so-called homelands, and they would not be allowed to go and work as an entire family unit in what was then called South Africa. So the man would leave his family and leave the rest of the family out. And this brought a lot of breakups in the families. Now, unfortunately, you then notice that the high rates of crime are linked to the breakdown in the family. Okay? And a lot of studies have shown this, because some of these children were not socialized or educated properly. So they end up becoming, well, for lack of a better word, renegades, criminal activities, and doing as they wish, because they did not get the values that could have been given very well in the family situation. Research in the US, America is very good at research, has done research in the prisons, and they find a high proportion of the prisons come from troubled families. And this is, again, research showing that somehow the breakdown of the family is not good for society. So there is all these ideas which are causing breakdown in the family. And as we speak today, you may be aware that the depression rates are increasing among young people. And again, this is linked to, again, a breakdown in the social network that is started at the family level, where people feel very lonely and they have no one to turn to, and they end up having some depressive episodes. Unfortunately, some of them even being suicidal tendencies. So it is not good for society when that education element is not there in the family.
And when it comes to sexual education for our children, whose responsibility is it? I know you said that as parents, we are the primary teachers.
Absolutely.
We're supposed to inculcate and pass over our values to our children. But sex education in the world, in Kenya, has now found its way into mainstream education. Who should we leave to be the primary educator for our kids, between me as a parent and the teachers?
Okay. I think for us in the program of family development, it is extremely clear. We go back to the parents. We go back to the parents. Sex is a very sensitive topic, naturally, both for boys and for girls. Okay, and even in our sessions with parents, we actually approach this topic and we tell them they are the primary educators of their children. And we often say the mother will be more comfortable with the girls and the father will be more comfortable with the boys. But we also say that the best example for them to understand this idea of love is when they see the parents being in love. When they see the example of their parents, because the parents are the first teachers. And we say children learn in 3 ways. Number one, what they observe. Okay, and the first people they're observing is their parents. That is the highest level of learning, the example they see. Number two is what they are made to repeatedly do, right, by the parents. And it could be as simple as make their beds, polish their shoes. At a certain age, maybe even start washing the dishes, cleaning the house. And they're made to repeatedly do that, dress decently. All these are things they learn from when they're made to repeatedly do them. And the third way they learn is what they're told. It is the least effective.
True.
It is the least effective,
True.
but we often like to specialize in that. So sex education, because sex is a very sensitive faculty, they need to understand the purpose of sex. And sex has, of course, a procreative purpose, and of course it is pleasurable, right? Now, the world emphasizes the pleasure, okay? Not the other role of procreation and the creation of the next generation, which again requires responsibility from the parents to look after that generation. So if it is used carelessly, what is going to happen is, as people seek pleasure, they will get offspring who they will not look after because they are not prepared for responsibility. So we emphasize it is important if it is practiced in a committed relationship, which we call marriage. Now, people say this is old-fashioned and you don't have to do that, you don't have to be committed, etc., etc. But the children need that commitment and the responsibility of the parents to be brought up well. Because if they are not, then they will grow up like wild bushes, for lack of a better word. They'll grow up wild, bandits and criminals, etc. So we emphasize it is the responsibility of the parents. Now, when we leave it to the school, the schools unfortunately teach the mechanics of sex and the way the children can keep safe from pregnancy and the consequences of sexual relations. Consequences are, of course, diseases, pregnancy in girls, heartbreak, disappointment, and all those things that accompany intimate relations. So the schools seem to be emphasizing how to avoid these consequences through the use of condoms and pills and whatever else, so that children are free to do as they wish, so long as they can avoid the consequences. But there are also huge psychological consequences in sexual relations, because these are two people giving everything of themselves to each other at a young age, and they get scarred for life. They get disappointed with each other if it's only about pleasure. The young men misuse the young ladies, and the young ladies lose confidence in men, and they hate the men. And there are all sorts of negative societal consequences. But if the parents can emphasize, model first what is good, and then teach them one-on-one, I think the children are much better off.
Do you think that, say maybe in the context of the family, there is some form of education that the dad plays, and then the mom plays, or is it however it comes 50-50, or whoever is more comfortable have that conversation?
Yes. At least what we try to emphasize, and this is what I practiced, is that there are certain intimate issues which the mother should discuss with the girls. Okay, it's much easier because she's a woman, and the girls will become women, and she's able to communicate to them at that level. The father with the boys on certain issues, but the father also has a very important role to impart certain education for his daughters, right? Because usually the daughter may look at the father as the kind of example of husband she would eventually have. So the father has to be very close also to the daughter. And generally, we have noticed that at some stage the girls may not get along very well with the mother, but they get along very well with the father. So the father is a big influence. I want to give you an example of one friend of ours who passed on as a man, and we went to the funeral. And the daughter was very close to the father, told us, as she was giving a message about her father to the congregation, she said, I want to tell you, Dad, I don't think I'll ever get married, because I don't think in my generation there are men like you. All the boys I've seen, the men I've seen around, none of them reaches your standard. And you are the standard I'd like to get married. Very beautiful testimony. Which means this father had bonded with the girl knew this is the kind of man I admire. And she was basically saying, I don't admire men generally because they don't reach the standard of my father. So the fathers have very strong influence on their daughters and on their sons, because they are the example of manliness for their sons. And they are also the example of manliness for their daughters. So they are able then to set up a good example. So the daughter can know what to choose when. And the sons can know what to become. Because again, there's what we call role modeling for young boys. How many boys would like to be like their father? Well, the father is strong, they want to be like the father strong. The father is respected, they want to be like the father, and that's what they should see in the father. So the father has to communicate and live in a way that his boys would like to be like him, and his girls would like husbands like that, because he loves his wife and they can see it. And his wife is happy and they have a good relationship and they can see, the children can see. So we often emphasize actually the love of the parents is the best educator for the children. To be educated in love is what they see the parents' love is. No? Again, how often is this what is happening to mess this example? There are a lot of separations which take place, unfortunately, for all sorts of reasons. But they seem to be increasing, which is very unfortunate. And I guess the couples need to be aware that it can also be very damaging to the children when this happens. So they need to try a little harder at an individual level, at least to forget themselves and focus on their relationship. Because they are bringing the next generation, and if that relationship doesn't work, the next generation will be a little bit damaged, and they'll also have difficulty in their own relationships. So both father and mother are very important in that education process. In intimate matters, mother with girls and father with boys. Yeah.
So if I hear you correctly,
Yeah.
I hear you place that very big responsibility
Yeah.
on the parents.
Yes.
That if we as parents model good behavior, model great values, then we can pass the same to our children, and naturally we could be able to change the whole country, the whole continent, and the world.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things I tell people, this is the most important job you'll ever do. The problem with this job is that there's very little training you get. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to study 4 years in university and then go to the school of law and then become a lawyer. Medicine, is it 5 or 6 years? And then do a master's, another 2-3 years. Literally 10 years to become a specialized doctor. What's the reward for being a good professional, a good lawyer, a good accountant? You get paid some money. Yeah, so there's a reward. When you get a job, what is the length of the contract? Perhaps it's 5 years or 10 years or till you retire. So there's a limitation on the contract. But with this job of being a parent, there's no limitation on the contract, it's for life. There's no pay and there's no training. Yet it's the most important job you'll ever do. Hence, you need to seek some training. Understand? Because apart from this is the one job that affects not only your children, but their children and their children and their children and thousands of other people after you. If you do it well, it's likely that the next generation will do it well and the next generation will do it well. And if you don't do it well, in fact, research has proven that the next generation will suffer and the next generation will suffer. So you're going to affect very many people. Understand?
Some naysayers will say, but our parents were not trained and we turned out okay.
Absolutely. That is a very common argument. In fact, that is the most common argument I've heard. But I always ask a simple question. In our parents' time, what was the environment like in terms of information flow? It was very limited. Extremely limited. If you are lucky, you had a radio. If you are very, very lucky, you had a television. Right? The only information flow was from the parents and perhaps the neighbors and the relatives. There was a community. And that community always strived to uphold a certain values to be shared. To be shared in that community for civilized living, for lack of a better word. Those values were good to enable that community to survive. You understand? Those were the messages. That was the information flow for the children at that time, at our parents' time. But with our children, what's the information flow? There is no community. You live in an urban area, and the only people maybe you interact with regularly is your parents, and when you go to school, your teachers and your friends. And maybe the wider family when you meet once in a while. But generally, it's a nuclear family setup, not a community family setup. So the information flow then was very little. Now, the children have a television, they have a computer, they have the internet, they have phones, and there's information coming in all the time from all over the world. Some good information, some bad information, we call misinformation. Some which forms them well, some which deforms them. Some which helps their minds to grow, some which destroys their mind. Some which gives them right ideas, some which gives them wrong ideas. That's the difference. And we cannot say that our parents were okay, we are okay, our parents took care of us 30, 40 years ago, and we are okay. There was no internet at that time. It's the first thing that you need to realize. There was very limited information flow. You've got to realize that. And this information flow is forming or deforming the children. Now, if a lot of it is deforming, because unfortunately a lot of it is deforming, you have to counter it with formative, good information, right information. Okay? And somehow to drown out the negative information coming in. This is the whole idea. So it's like a river that is flowing downstream, okay, from the highest level to the lowest level. And every river that flows from the highest to the lowest level. We are all being washed downstream. Now our programs are trying to say, hey, we've got to swim upstream. It might be more difficult because most people are going downstream, but it might be a bit more difficult, but it will save our lives if we swim upstream. Because we'll not go to the lowest level, which is what is happening now. A low level of unhappiness, depression, difficulties, quarrels, alcoholism, drug abuse. Those are the low levels which we are experiencing in society. We're saying if we swim upstream, we might save these negative situations arising. It requires some effort and some determination and some collaboration between the parents. And then meeting with like-minded people who encourage one another.
And Gen Z is upon us.
Yes.
And they're not going anywhere.
Yes.
And stats show that they're the biggest group right now.
Yes.
And the biggest and the best motto that they love, YOLO.
Yes.
And now you're here saying, let's swim upstream.
Yes.
Let's do it differently.
Yes.
It's not about individualism. It's not about materialism.
Yes.
How do we handle that?
Yeah. You see, that idea of YOLO, you only live once, is a value. It's in the mind. And it's been touted as the way Gen Z think. But I want to argue, and we believe, there are many children who think in this way because no one has come up with a counter idea and try to show that you can make a different choice. See, because even here at the business school, we tell the students, you have freedom to do anything you want. Yeah. But there are consequences. And you have no freedom to choose the consequence. So choose anything you want. It's okay. You have the freedom. But you don't have freedom to choose the consequence. The consequence will be automatic. It will either be a positive consequence or a negative consequence, which means you have to choose your freedom. We have many children who then choose, okay, I'll take drugs. You only live once. Let me take drugs. What's the consequence of that? Addiction. If you're addicted, you won't be able to come and study. If you don't study, you don't pass your examinations. You don't pass your examinations, you repeat the year. You again continue the drugs, you get kicked out of the university if you can't study the year that you repeat. You have freedom, but there are consequences. So we start early enough to start telling them, remember to choose your actions wisely with responsibility, but you're free. And even when I meet them here, I tell them, look, your freedom and responsibility. So I was saying, so we try and explain to them that whole idea of your freedom, but you have to exercise it with responsibility because you're not free to choose the consequences. Now, many of them start understanding. And then they don't typically behave like Gen Z. We have some very responsible students here. So Gen Z is a lump sum of students, and I guess this started in the West. And then we embraced it and said that's the way this age group is born from this year to this year. But I believe we can mold them differently. And they will not behave like the Gen Z.
Yes.
So we have to be in control. They might be in the minority. That's why I'm saying we're swimming upstream, because everyone is being swept downstream.
True.
So we have to decide. And we have a choice. We can say it is too difficult, so let's not do anything. We're overwhelmed. Or we can say we're going to do our best and try. At least we might save one. And if we save one, that's better than zero. But if we give up, we will not save any. If we save one, we might be able to save two, we might be able to save three. But there are millions of them who are being lost but at least we save 3. It's better than nothing. And those 3 means a generation in time will be saved. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, it's profound that you say that, because I think we have I like to coin them the 3 big bad that is the hallmark of Gen Z, of this generation that seemingly is as if they fell out of the sky and they came upon us.
Yes.
And it's hedonism.
Yes.
It's narcissism.
Yes.
It's hubris.
Yes.
Could you please go deeper into that and how we can counter it in our society?
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes, narcissism, everything revolves around you. It's about you. Right? Hubris and pride. I'm better than everyone. I can do as I wish. All that. That is, in a nutshell, the whole mentality of individualism. It's about me, and I don't care about my neighbor. So long as I do as I wish, I'm happy. I don't care about the rest. How do you counter that? I can tell you, it is an education process, and the parents can start.
Okay.
Now, how do parents deal with, for example, the people who work in their homes? These are house helps, for example. Should you care about the house help as a person, as a human being with feelings? Treat them with respect, give them a place to sleep and decent accommodation, etc., etc. And respect them as a human being. This is what the children are going to see. And they'll start learning, it's not only about me, I have also got to care about others. You understand? So it's about caring about others. And if you care about others, they are happy and I am happy. Number 2, I give you a simple example. What we do here is we have a compulsory community service where our students go to a place that is less endowed or that has material need. It could be a school, it could be a hospital, and they offer their services to the community. And the place may be a bit uncomfortable for them. They may work in conditions which are not very pleasant for them, but they learn to forget themselves. So it's not about you. You're trying to make conditions better for others. And they're put through that program, and many of them come to realize when they do something for others, they actually become happier. This is linked to a very interesting concept. Okay, the human being is made of 3 parts. There is the body, there is the mind, and there is the will. Now, the body is nourished by food. Eat good food, the right food, proteins, vitamins, carbohydrates for energy. Your body is nourished, you're able to work. You're able to remain healthy. You do exercises, you maintain your health. That's how the body is nourished. Okay, and it does what it's supposed to do because it's nourished. The mind is nourished by truth, such that when you hear the truth, you actually feel attracted to it. That's how the mind is nourished. Okay, so for example, we can say that all human beings have got dignity, so we've got to treat everyone with respect. That's the truth, right? What is the opposite of the truth? Is something false. Human beings have no dignity, so I should not treat anyone with respect. You're not going to nourish yourself that way, and you're not going to be attracted to that. But when you treat someone with respect and they're happy, you feel happy. The will is attracted to good, is nourished by good. When you choose to do good, you feel good. It's very interesting. When you're a bit kinder to somebody, you actually feel good.
Yeah, you feel fulfilled.
You feel fulfilled, exactly. Because that's the nature of a human being. Now, most people don't understand that. So they think that they can embrace falsehood and say, sorry to use this example, which is very difficult, but in some places they say a man and a man can get married. But there's no procreation in that man. It's not possible. So there's something wrong. So it's not true that this can make a family. There's a falsehood there. And it's not very attractive to many people. It's attractive to some, for whatever reason, but to many people it is not. Because it's not the truth. So you don't nourish yourself when you embrace some of these falsehoods. So people don't sometimes get too attracted to them. So you find there's a minority, yes, embracing some of these falsehoods. There are people who are very mean to the people they work with, for example. You cannot be happy in the workplace when you're mean to all your colleagues. No? But if you work well and people are happy when they see you, you feel good also. That's the human nature. So this education process, I think, is so important. That we understand truth And goodness are important for the human being to live a good life, to enjoy life. We call it a little taste of heaven here on earth.
I agree.
In this difficult life, which has so many sorrows and so many difficulties, you taste a little joy by living according to your nature. Yeah.
Do you think there is hope for Kenya? Say maybe for the young Kenyan students, probably in primary school, that we can still, in a way,
mold and form them.
we can mold them. Do you think there is hope?
I think there is hope. That hope lies in the conviction of many, many adults and teachers who are forming these children. In the conviction of many parents who are convinced that this is their most important responsibility and they're doing their best in the face of all the opposing values and issues happening around us. And I keep saying we have to have a conviction about something in this life. Because if we don't, what do we live for? What do we live for? For the moment, just to enjoy, to eat and drink and to have pleasure. That is not enough to give us a reason to live. And often I say there is a difference between objectives and ideals. An objective is something you can achieve and say, done, tick the box. Okay, for example, you want to go to town by 4 o'clock and have a meeting. You can do that. You can plan, go to town, have your meeting, and you tick that objective is achieved. An ideal is bigger than an objective, and we never achieve the ideal in our lives. It's something which is big, beautiful, and good, which is worth living for, and if necessary, dying for, and that is what gives you fulfillment, purpose. You know? And I think a beautiful family is an ideal. Bring up your children to be mature adults is an ideal in a world which is so negative. That's an ideal. You may never achieve it fully in your lifetime, but it's something worth living for and dying for if necessary. Because by the time you exit this earth, you will say, I have done my best to achieve that ideal. I have done the best I could. And that is the greatest fulfillment. That is what we call your legacy. Yeah, a good legacy is when you aim for a good ideal and you've done your best to strive for it. Yeah.
What a wonderful way to just cap it all up.
Yeah.
In winding up,
Yes.
what is one message that you'd like to reach to parents out there, especially parents in Kenya? What is the one thing you would love to tell them?
Okay. I just want to tell them there is no more better ideal of a parent than to be a good parent who aims to bring up their children to be responsible adults who will be happy here on earth. You understand? Because when you're responsible, you actually enjoy some level of happiness in life. No? You have no guilty conscience, you are free with people, you easily make friends and you have good company and people are attracted to you and you're able to work with them. You actually even do well in your career.
True.
Yeah, if you're responsible. Because people want to work with responsible people they can trust. You understand? Now, there is nothing as good as being a parent who lives their life knowing this is important, does their best to do it and sees the success of their efforts in the long run. It's not a short-run business. In the long run, it's the crowning glory in your old age to see your children have matured well. And you are able to leave them with even your property and you know they're going to be responsible with it. Right? That is the crowning glory of in our old age. Parents need to realize this early enough, otherwise they end up being frustrated by their lives. Yeah. And all of us live in either a state of frustration or a state of fulfillment. Being a good parent, an intentional parent, is one of the best ways to be a fulfilled person.
Dr. Caesar, asante sana.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, most welcome.
I do not have anything much to add on to what the good doctor has said. Listen, we've been blessed by our kids. It's up to us to ensure that we pass the values that we want to pass to our children. I once sat in a sermon and the pastor said something I'd never heard before. He said that most parents, we think that it's about amassing wealth and that's the inheritance we can pass to our kids. But the biggest inheritance we can pass to our kids is passing on our values, our virtues, even our religion, anything that you can do to ensure the path of your child is easier and better. I'm your host, JF. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this episode was insightful. I hope it was educational. Please leave us a comment on what you think. We always love to hear your reviews. Keep it here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. No, it's okay.